topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hi, I'm Shelby, and I welcome you to my show, Learning to Dance in the Rain, where the guests and I discuss different topics to keep you informed on the trends of the day, I hope to say, and share experiences that will be helpful to you in avoiding some of the pitfalls that happen to us in life. And today's guest, I'm very happy to welcome Judy Gaman. Judy is an award-winning author and speaker. She's also a podcast host, and she's CEO of the Executive Medicine of Texas. She's a graduate of the prestigious George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Sciences and the School of Professional Studies. She holds a graduate certificate in strategic management from Harvard Extension School. And she's passionate about helping people to discover their purpose or figure out what it is they want to do with the rest of their life and live with resilience. And that's what I'm all about too. So come on out here, Judy, and tell me more about your experiences in your book. 10 proven steps to ultimate health.
Yeah, stay young, 10 proven steps to ultimate health. And Shelby, it's such a pleasure to be on with you. And you're doing such a great job, getting the word out for people. And I just appreciate the opportunity to come on with you.
Oh, I very much appreciate you being here with me. I saw your credentials and I thought, wow, stay young, because I've been saying for the last, after my husband died, I was in mid-70s. And I said, I'm not getting any older. I'm getting younger. And so I saw that and I thought, yep, Judy's the one for me. Let's hear what you have to say today.
Well, I love your attitude. And there's so much research that shows and tells us that attitude is so important when it comes to staying young and staying healthy. So we're going to kind of walk through the 10 steps. And I like the order of these steps because it's so much easier when we have a bit of a roadmap. And we could start with like the first one or two and kind of dive into them. And then you could keep me on track so we can get through all of them. How about that?
All right, we'll do that.
All right. So let's start with family history. A lot of people, when they hear, oh gosh, I have to really understand or know my family history, they get a little scared because they may think, wow, dad had a heart attack, grandma had cancer, and they start writing down this family history and they think this is a death sentence, or they think that this is actually going to be their story. But I want to assure your viewers that that is not necessarily true. And for anyone who's watching this, you need to understand a little bit about genetics and epigenetics. And that is, this is important information because there is a chance that you could have these genetics, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be turned on. And that's where epigenetics comes in. Think of your genes as kind of light switches, and they're all kind of in the off stage. There has to be something that comes along to switch it on or put power to it, so to speak. So if you have a family history of, say, lung cancer, and then you start smoking, you may have that gene. And if you do have that gene and you start a habit like smoking or vaping, that may be what actually powers or turns on that light or turns on that piece of your genetics. So this is why it's really important to know what they are. Now, the flip side of that is just because something wasn't in your family history doesn't mean that it couldn't happen to you. So as we go through all of these other steps and things that you need to do, know that family history isn't the end all be all, but it's a really good place to start and to start understanding some of the risks that you may have. Now, if you're adopted, this may be something that's a little scary for you, or maybe you just don't know your family history because no one's actually sat down and given it to you. This is really good when you get into something like 23andMe or some of these places that have a component that you can look up your genetic health risks. And a lot of doctors' offices, I know at Executive Medicine of Texas, we have a lot of genetic markers that we can check in your blood. So if you don't have that history, don't worry, because there is a way to uncover some of that.
I see. So your book supplies us with a step-by-step program to get our health back, or to
It
maintain
does.
it. Does
It
So-
does. And I think it's good to know that, family history is one, but then you have to start looking inward at yourself. Okay, what is it that step number 2 entails? And that is really understanding your current status. There's something that our doctors at Executive Medicine like to say, and that is never get ostrich syndrome. And that's where you just put your head in the sand and you just pretend nothing exists. I don't have any of these symptoms. I don't have any issues. And because I've never had a physical, therefore I must be healthy. These are some of the ways you can get into trouble. Another way is if you are used to something like, say, an HMO physical, or maybe you had your blood drawn once, and you say to yourself, or you really have this mentality that I had my blood checked and I'm okay. Everything was fine. You have to remember that you can only say you're okay on what was checked. And sometimes those are very, very basic tests. It may be that they're just screening for diabetes or they're checking your liver functions. But the only way that you can really, truly know what your health status is to go through a very in-depth program where you're having a lot of blood tests. You're having an EKG. Maybe you're having a stress test, depending on what program you're in. Maybe you're having a CT, the abdomen, chest, and pelvis. Don't forget all these other screenings like pap smears and PSAs and colonoscopies. These are very, very important for you to understand your current health status, because you can't improve on something that you don't measure. You don't know what you don't know. So number 2 is get a physical exam, and get as an in-depth physical exam as you currently can get wherever you are. And if you need to travel somewhere, I mean, Executive Medicine of Texas, where I'm the CEO, is a great place. The Mayo Clinic, there's several of places that have these half-day physical exams where you can go in and really get way more information you ever thought you could know about yourself. This is key, because if you can stop things before they start, you're going to improve your chances for a longer life. Very, very important. You don't want to find things after the fact. You want to find them before they become serious. And this is where that whole physical exam is critical to that path.
Well, when I first was diagnosed with diabetes back almost 50 years ago, when I was pregnant, and as the years went by, and I saw, the expected life of a diabetic person would be about 76, 78, somewhere in there. Well, I've passed that now. Am I living on borrowed time?
Means you're doing a few things right? You're beating the odds, Shelby. Terrific.
Well, I was thinking about that just yesterday, and I thought, well, wow, I don't feel bad. I feel pretty good for my age. I think very good. But yeah.
Well, I think you make a good point, Shelby, and that is, just because you have a diagnosis in your circumstances, diabetes, doesn't mean that you have to be that statistic. If you look at that average age, that doesn't mean that's going to be your age. There's so many things that you can do to actually say, I'm going to beat the odds. Because when they look at these mean ages, or the average age, when they're looking at that, they're looking at the people who didn't take care of themselves, who maybe didn't take their medication or their insulin, and they just continued to eat poorly and they didn't exercise and all of these things. And they're looped in with the people who may be doing some things, and then the people who are really saying, hey, I'm going to take this serious. I'm going to change my life. But it's the people that do nothing that bring those average ages down. So the fact that you're doing things, even like right now, you doing what you're doing right now, you're stretching your mind, your brain, you're staying active. I mean, this is a big attributor to why you are so healthy at your age and why you're so vibrant and your mind is working so well. Not just because maybe you have good genes, but because you're putting in the work. And that's what this is all about. Good health is about putting in the work. It doesn't have to be hard. It just takes effort.
Yeah, right. And, I love to dance, and learning to dance came in because I started taking line dance lessons after my husband died and I moved back to Michigan. And now we're taking ballroom dancing, some of the things that I was always wanting to do, but never got around to, didn't have time when I was working full time and so on. But I think I amaze people, and I know I amaze myself that when I'm dancing, I don't feel the pain. I may feel it when I sit down, but
that's so good. I love what you're talking about. It's so interesting. I've met a lot of widows and widowers who have kind of come into a whole new life after the fact. You get past the grief and then you suddenly start saying, I'm still here. What do I want to do? Here's my chance to really go down that list of things that I've always wanted to do and say, yeah, it's okay for me to do these things. And that is the difference between the people who make it and make that next life and live longer, and the people who literally just kind of draw back and wither and then kind of waste away. So I applaud you for what you're doing. I think it's absolutely terrific.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm having a good time with my life, and I can't complain about it.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, let's move into step number 3, and that is modifying your eating habits. I'm going to give you a couple of tips. I know we've got 10 of these to get through, so I'm going to just give the viewers a couple of tips on modifying their eating habits. These are quick and easy things. First of all, if you're drinking sodas, I don't care if they're diet or if they're regular, whatever, cut it out. There's so much research that shows that just cutting sodas out, whether they're diet or not, out of your daily routine, in the end of the year, you will automatically weigh 10 pounds or 8 to 10 pounds less. So This is a quick and easy thing. Now, I want to talk for a minute about diet anything, whether this is diet sodas or this is, the little packet you pour into your tea or what have you. There's great research about the disruption of the gut microbiome with artificial sweeteners. And we now know that there's a connection between the gut and the brain. And there's definitely a connection between gut health and longevity. So we don't want to be putting chemicals and things into our system that are going to disrupt our gut, because it's going to directly affect our ability to live a long and healthy life. So cut out all the artificial sweeteners 100%. Look for them in things. They could be in not just the drinks that you drink, they could be in the foods that you eat, they could be in the toothpaste, believe it or not. And some medications even put it in there. So cut those out.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. You really want to pay attention, read those labels. Now, there's another thing that is so important, and it's easy. And that is that we need to look at our plate and say, am I tasting the rainbow? And I'm not talking about Skittles. What I'm talking about is there a lot of color on my plate? Because we know that color inside of foods means that it's nutrient rich, and we want to be eating nutrient rich foods. So important to do that. because if we are sticking to browns and whites and all these kind of colors that really aren't vibrant, we're not going to get the nutritional value in our food that we absolutely need. And it's those phytonutrients that help us live longer. They affect our skin, they affect our brain, they affect every bit of us, and they also give us more energy. So when you look at your plate, when you look at what you're buying at the grocery store, make sure you're putting a lot of color on that plate, putting color in that cart. And when you go to the grocery store, this is a really easy thing to do. Never shop the middle of the store. That's where all the bad stuff is. Shop the perimeter. So you're going to go around the perimeter, and that means you're going to be getting your fruits, your vegetables, your proteins, and you're really not going inside of that packaged and processed market in the center of the store, because those are the things that will really affect your health. Now, if you say, sometimes I got to eat out of a box, it is what it is. That's my life. Okay. I'm going to give you one little way you can kind of cut back on those bad things. Look at the ingredients of whatever it is you're going to put in your mouth. If there are more than 5 ingredients, or if you cannot pronounce or you don't know what one of those ingredients is, put it back on the shelf. Easy, easy, easy. So if there's more than 5 ingredients, or if one of the ingredients you don't know what it is or you can't pronounce it, don't buy it. You need to be thinking that when you look at that, you need to retrain your brain to think this is poison. Put it back on the shelf. So important. And it's an easy thing. I mean, a lot of times we can get into, okay, let's read labels. Let's, count calories. Let's look at this. This is just a simple rule that will cut a lot of that out and make life literally easier for you.
You've given me four ideas right here already. Thank you. What about probiotics? Is that as good for the gut as what they?
Yeah. So probiotics are really good. Now, not all probiotics are created equal. So this is where it gets really important. There's different kinds of probiotics that come in different packages and the way they are, but the way they're handled, the way they're stored is really, really important, because these, they're live cultures, so they could die and such. Getting them naturally through like kimchi or yogurt, and I always say don't get the yogurt with the artificial sweeteners, because you've just completely defeated the purpose. So skip the fruit at the bottom. And really, because most of the ones with the fruit at the bottom also add some kind of artificial sweetener. I don't know why they do that, because fruit's sweet enough. But I digress. So, if you can get these probiotics in a natural way, that is great. Fermented foods are really good for this. But if you're going to be getting them over the shelf, just pay attention to what is the expiration date. If it expires in like 4 years, don't get it. You can kind of see what the quality is. A lot of practices, medical practices, I know on our Executive Medicine of Texas, emtexas.com site, we actually have a store where we have pharmaceutical grade probiotics, just giving a shameless plug out there, because they're the ones I take. I just know, I've done my research. I know which ones are good. Those are the ones I take, but they're not the only ones that are good. There are other ones that are good as well. So, probiotics, I'm glad you brought that up, but I want to talk for just a second about something maybe people don't think about, and that's the prebiotics. So people say, well, what is that? I just learned I got to take probiotics. Now you're telling me there's prebiotics. So when we have a healthy gut and we have these probiotics going around and we've got a lot of good, healthy bacteria in our gut, they have to have something to eat. And that's the prebiotics. So these are fibrous foods. So eating things like celery, making sure you have a lot of fiber in your diet, because this is what creates a healthy gut and keeps your gut healthy. So make sure you have plenty of prebiotics, and then also, taking a good probiotic doesn't hurt. But the number one thing is cut out those artificial sweeteners. They're totally jacking up your gut. So just be very, very careful about that.
Okay, very good. It seems to me that things that are good for you are more expensive than just I see cost-effective ways to improve your health and so on. Is that true? Well, I suppose if you're getting rid of your artificial sweetened sodas, that okay. And what was the other thing? Um,
A lot of packaged and processed foods.
yeah,
That's where a lot of expense comes in, is, buying all these name brand cereals and all of these things, cookies and crackers, and the price of all of this has gone up. I mean, there's no secret here that we've got a massive inflation thing. And so what a lot of people are doing is they're, going to drive-throughs and looking for 99-cent menus. But the long-term cost of doing these things is astronomical. So we've got to find out ways that, okay, how can I get the healthy foods that I need? And it may be that you look at, okay, I'm going to buy frozen fruits and vegetables because maybe the fresh ones are a little bit more expensive now because they have to toss so many of them that go bad. But just really read the ads for grocery stores, and really shop to the sales. If money is a concern, really look for where those sales are and shop to the sales, and stock up when things are on sale. It's so good to get as many fruits and vegetables and things into your diet as you can. And then healthy, lean meats like chicken, very, very important. But I also understand that there's a cost to that, and avoid the 99-cent drive-through. And the other thing is, get away from frothy drinks. It's so easy nowadays to go in and, get a latte of this, and it's got some kind of pumpkin spice, and you're just drinking your calories, and try not to drink calories. If you can not drink calories and really get those calories in food, it's helpful in many ways. One, you'll save a lot of money. But two, you also will stop the cravings, because when we get those sugary drinks, even though they taste great, they make us hungrier. And then we'll crave things that are not good for us. So if you cannot drink your calories, which means that, drink plain water. If you need to put something in it, put some cucumbers, some strawberry slices or something, just give it a little bit of flavor. But stay away from even those packaged drinks, because this is really the start of the snowball effect. Oh, now I'm hungry. And, and you may be satisfied for a few minutes, and then an hour passes, you're like, I'm hungry again. Well, that's because eating carbs and eating sugar just make you hungrier. So the healthier you can get, the better. Let's go to number 4. And this is, I used to say this is every woman's favorite chapter in the book, but I really say that is becoming the men's too, because in this busy world, and I always say that busy is like a 4-letter word, because we literally get way too busy. So it should be a bad word in society today. I'm guilty of it as well. But I love the idea of go to the spa. Now, if you say, I don't have a budget to go to the spa, what are you talking about? That's okay. You can have your own spa day. Do you remember, Shelby, back in the day when the commercials, the Calgon commercials that were on TV, and it would be, Calgon, take me away. And the woman would be like pouring herself a bubble bath. You can have your own spa day. But the whole idea of go to the spa is take some time for yourself. And really take a moment to put on some music, maybe light some candles. If you can go to the local spa, go to the local spa, because we know that massage is very, very good for circulation. So if you have that ability to go to the spa, great. If you don't have the finances to go to the spa, make your own spa. Like literally make your own spa at home, because it's that time that you take to just deconstruct. Just say, I'm going to take all the things that have stressed me out. I'm going to take them apart and not let them, live up in my brain. And I'm going to set them aside, and I'm going to have just an hour or two of me time. And me time is not a bad thing. Me time is what keeps you alive. You got to have it. And if you're viewing this, or you're listening to this, and you're a busy professional, and you're like, man, you got a calendar, and you're like, nope, I live and die by the calendar, and I'm not on schedule. Do it. Put yourself on the schedule. Make it a non-negotiable time of the day. So maybe you have a really busy week. Maybe you look at Tuesday from 3 to 4 and Thursday from 10 to 11. Put yourself in there and put on there. Don't schedule over. If you have an assistant that could get into your calendar and schedule over things, this is a non-negotiable appointment. Make an appointment with yourself. And what does that look like? Maybe it's headphones in. Maybe it's that Calgon take me away moment. But those are the moments that are yours and they're non-negotiable. So, so important.
So that's right. Yeah, very good. So, so you recommend massage therapy?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of benefits to massage therapy. I mean, if you have something like a blood clot or, things that would put you at risk, I mean, you got to disclose all of those things to your masseuse, but massage therapy is super healthy. It gets the lymphatics moving. It gets blood circulating. There's even some research that shows that it improves cognition. So get a massage. I highly, highly recommend it.
I love to do that's one of my favorite things to do, but sometimes it gets on the back burner with the schedule and so on and other things. So, okay, well, moving forward, what's chapter 5?
Well, let me tell you, Shelby, you have nailed this one. And this is all about exercise. And your dancing is just a great example of using exercise and movement to help you live longer, healthier, and to just perk you up and breathe life into you. Now, maybe, I mean, you can see it. You're just a living example of it. I want to hear how dancing has changed your life, your health.
Well, I don't like to exercise. I don't like sit-ups and I don't like walking alone and that. It's really a challenge to get to doing that. But I have no trouble at all going to a dance and getting up out on the floor especially when the 50s rock and roll music starts playing. I got to do a swing. I mean, I'm going to swing whether I'm sitting or not,
Oh, I love it. I love it. I just think that's so great. And you bring up such a good point because there are a lot of people that feel the way you do. I don't like to do sit-ups. I don't want to go walk by myself. And exercise when it's a social event, which, you're making a social event. Not only do we tend to do more of it, but we like it. So when we do something that we like, we get a bit of a dopamine rush, which our body will say, oh, go do that again. So, Zumba class is good. A lot of people do that, or they go to a cycling class, or maybe they go to a stretch class. But the word class in there means that they've turned that exercise into a social event, which is exactly what you're doing. So I applaud you. I think you're a living example of this step, and you're doing such a good job. Now, for people who say, I'm an introvert, if you tell me to go exercise with people, I just want to literally crawl into the covers and suck my thumb. I get it. There's people that is not their jive. And my rule of thumb for them is, okay, great. Get moving. And you need to do 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes, 3 times a week. And you need to do 3 different kinds. So these are the 3s I want everybody to remember. At least 30 minutes, 3 times a week, and you do 3 different things. You need to do cardio, flexibility, and muscle building. Critical, critical, critical. Cardio keeps your heart healthy. It actually improves your brain function. Flexibility, a lot of people leave this out, but this is what's going to keep you from getting injured should you fall. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to twist around and catch yourself. You have to be able to move without pulling your back out or pulling a hamstring. Super, super important that you do flexibility. And then muscle building. We know that muscle building and longevity are linked completely. So you got to get strong. I wrote another book called Age to Perfection, How to Thrive to 100, Happy, Healthy, and Wise. And one thing that I found when I interviewed all these people over 100 who were very, very active is that they all had some form of exercise. Now, whether that was walking, or whether it was they had these little like 2-pound dumbbells and they'd lift them up, or they'd do squats, or whatever that was that they were doing for exercise. They were doing something. There was this one lady. Oh my gosh, Shelby, I loved her, loved her, loved her. She was just so vibrant, so full of life, and she was just the sweetest African American woman who just blew me away when she told me this. She said ever since they built a gym in her community, she started going. And it used to be that, and she's talking about like 30 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, she would go and she would do the circuits. So she would go on each one of the machines. And she said, over time, she goes, about age 90, I realized I didn't have the strength that I had, but I knew I had to keep my machine, meaning her body, completely oiled. So she was still, when I talked to her at 101, she was still going through the circuit. She goes, I don't put the weights on most of the machines, but I make sure that I keep my machine, my personal machine, oiled. So she still was doing the circuits within the gym. And wow. I never forgot that, because I thought, here's somebody over 100. Oh my gosh, what's my excuse? What's our excuse? Because right. She's living so vibrantly. And I know it's because she's following that exercise regimen.
Yeah. People complain, or they're depressed, or I don't feel like doing anything. But I said, well, you don't do what you feel like doing. You do what you need to do and get out there and do something. And in my book, I explain that dance. A lot of people will look at the book and think, oh, it's all about dance. But yeah, well, dance is also a metaphor for activity.
Yeah.
Just get busy. Just get busy. Something.
Get after it.
Bowling. A friend of mine said, well, I just like to shoot pool. I said, well, get out there and shoot pool then.
That's right.
Just go do something. And
just the act of getting in the car, driving there, walking in, picking up the pole, bending over and shooting pool. I mean, that is a form of exercise. That's a form of movement. You said something interesting, Shelby, and that was about people saying, I don't feel like it. I feel depressed. Well, there's so much research now that proves that exercise is not just as effective, but is actually more effective than antidepressants. And it doesn't have the side effects. So if you don't feel like exercising, that's the whole reason you need to exercise, because mental fitness and mental health is directly linked to physical activity. And so if you could just fake it till you make it, just say, I don't feel like going out for a walk. I don't feel like doing this. I guarantee if you get up off the couch, if you get out of your chair, if you turn the TV off, if you put the book down, whatever it is that's keeping you sitting, if you stop scrolling on your phone, you get up, you get out the door, you go for a walk, you will not regret it. No one has ever said, I really wish I wouldn't have gone for a walk. Nobody ever says that. Right? Ever. Unless of course you fell, but there's not really a downside to exercise. Know your limits, of course. I learned that the hard way, Shelby. Have you ever heard of this workout called Insanity?
Seems like I have heard that. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, Sean T from Beachbody, like he was the bomb. I'm talking like I'm younger, because he was the bomb when I was younger. So I loved all of his workouts. And then I decided when I was in my 40s, I'm no longer in my 40s. When I was in my 40s, that I was going to start doing his workout called Insanity. There's a reason it's called Insanity. It wasn't meant for people in their late 40s to start doing. And of course, I busted my ankle. And the reason I tell you this is because you have to know your limits. You have to say, okay, what makes sense for me, for my age, for my health, whatever. What is the right workout? Maybe that's a conversation with your, with your healthcare provider. Maybe it's at looking who's doing this workout. If you're going to be watching a video or doing it on TV, if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, probably don't do the workout that's being put on the television by someone who's 25. there's a lot of older people like Denise Austin. I love her. There's a lot of older people that are doing workouts that are right for our age group. So find those and then start slowly. And I just think there's so many opportunities to get into a program that makes sense, that won't cause an injury. So look for the right things and don't do something insane like I did with Insanity.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of when I thought I could do Zumba, and I thought, nope.
Yeah, not all Zumba classes are created equal either.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
Well, let's move right on to 6 then.
Okay, great. So 6 is about getting spiritually centered. And now I'm not here to tell anyone what religion to be. What I really want to point out, and this kind of goes back to the Age to Perfection book when I was really learning about longevity and how to get to 100. And I was interviewing and talking to a lot of these people, studying the blue zones where people live over 100 and do it quite well. And the one thing that is this common denominator is that they all had a higher power. They all had a spiritual centeredness about them. And it didn't matter what their religion was. It was that they didn't feel like the weight of the world was on their own shoulders, that they literally knew, hey, you know what? This is stressful, but I'm going to give it up. And I'm just going to press forward. And I think a lot of that comes with the ability to be spiritually centered. Because when we think we're the center of the universe, that's a very stressful place to be. And it's a very unhealthy place to be. So I can't really even give it enough justice. If your listener, your viewer is saying, no, I'm not spiritual at all, I invite them to really rethink that. Because when we look at people who aren't spiritually centered, we see a lot higher risk of anxiety, of suicide, of depression, because there's just so much that they are taking on themselves. So really think about this. If you're on that side of the fence where you're like, yeah, that's never kind of been me. Well, every day we have the opportunity to reinvent ourselves and to say, yeah, but how's that working for me? Not being spiritually centered isn't really working for me. So how do I find that? And I've met people of all walks of life, of all ages, who had later life experiences. You know, they've joined the church, whatever it is that they have been drawn to, and I've watched them just become like alive, and the weight of the world is off of them, and they're so much healthier. And I just have such a testimony of being spiritually centered, even in my own life, and being able to tackle and handle a lot more when I don't feel like I'm doing it all by myself or doing it all for myself.
That's very good advice. Yeah, very good. I was reminded. I've been church organist since I was 16. And I even had secretarial to one church a few years back when Tennessee, and my pastor, he had written a book. He had been a chaplain for the military, different aspects of it. And he wrote a book called There's No Atheists in Foxholes.
Oh my gosh, I love that book. Yes, that is so true. There are no atheists in foxholes.
Have you seen the book? Yeah. I thought, yeah, when you stop to think about it, you get to a point where, hey, you have to be centered on Christ. You have to have some higher being, as you're saying.
Yeah.
That to help you get through some of those tough times. Yeah.
And don't wait till you have the heart attack, you have the stroke, you have the cancer, you have the whatever, that don't wait till that moment, although that's a great motivator, right? But all the time that you waste before that, you can't get that back. So I was just such a strong testimony of that. I can't even speak high enough about it. So.
Okay, so moving right ahead, we got 3 more to go or 4 more to go here. And 6 minutes to do it in. So what's number 7?
Number 7 is, and I hate saying homework balance, because I don't think that there's a way to actually balance these two things at the same time. What we want to do is be able to know when to live in each of these things. If you're at work and all you're thinking about is your issue at home, or you're at home and all you're thinking about is your issue at work, you're not really living in either place. Your body may be there, but your mind's somewhere else. So I like to talk about this in the sense of aligning your body and mind to where you are. And if there's something going on at home, maybe say, okay, I've got to go to work, but I'm going to give myself this 15-minute window, maybe in the middle of my day, to put a little energy into that. Not just ignore it, but put a little energy into that during that 15, 20 minutes, maybe make a few phone calls or whatever it is I have to do on that. But then I'm going to allow myself to say, I'm going to put that back in the box and I'm going to complete my work. Because that is so less stressful than to have your brain do this constant forth. I'm in this state now, I'm in this state, I'm in that state. And your mind can't keep up and your body's exhausted and it's 4:00 and you feel like it's midnight. Now, this is what's really important to kind of learn sooner than later. And then when you're home, be present. Be present with your spouse, with your kids, with your grandkids, whoever it is in your life, in your home life, be present. And even more so, be present with yourself. Know that it's okay to come home and have moments where you're just thinking about the future, or you're reading a book, or you're doing something that is just for you to be present in that moment. When I was at George Washington University and I was doing a study on high blood pressure in the medical setting. So it was on something called white coat hypertension. And I ran this study as a capstone project for my degree. And a very interesting thing that I found out during this, and I had put patients with a 24-hour blood pressure monitor, and I'd had them do various activities, and they kept a diary. What were they doing at the time the blood pressure cuff went off? And then I would bring them into the office and they would go through something, then they go back home. And we just want to see, okay, is it really the office and the doctor and the nurses that are raising their blood pressure? What is it? And I even had different rooms. Like I'd put them in a regular clinical room, but then I'd put them in a room that seemed more like home, and then still send in the doctors and the nurses. But the interesting thing about this particular study is across the board, I had a finding that I wasn't expecting. And that was when I would look at their lowest blood pressure readings across the board, it was when they were reading something. It was when they were reading, whether they were reading the newspaper, they were reading a book. When I compared the diaries to those blood pressures, I saw this. Now, fast forward probably 10 years after this, and a study comes out, says reading lowers your blood pressure. That study. I had to see that study.
Yeah.
And I think what it is it may not necessarily be reading, but the sense that you are living in the present. You can't actually read and comprehend and do something else at the same time. It's impossible. If you've ever read a book and you're actually reading and you're thinking about something else, and you go, oh, what did I just read? And you got to go back and reread the paragraph because it's impossible to do that. We have a mindset, and often this was celebrated in the workplace for many years. We've now debunked it, that multitasking was a good thing. If you can multitask, then you actually are the best candidate for the job. Now we know through functional MRI that multitasking is a misnomer. It's not that you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4 things at the same time, because your brain can only do one thing at a time. So if you are, quote, multitasking, what you've just mastered is the ability to flip back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth really, really fast, because your brain can only do one thing at a time. So you're doing this and you're doing that, then you're doing this and you're doing that. And what happens? We get exhausted. And then after we've, quote, multitasked for maybe the space of an hour or two, the brain processing speed goes down. So the ability to actually continue doing that and doing it accurately is far lower. So I always say, when we talk about home life, work balance, and all of this, it's important to understand a few things. You cannot do both at once, and allow yourself to live in the present, whether you're at work or you're at home. The cell phone, I always tell people all the time, the cell phone can be the worst. If you're at work, turn your notification, even at home, turn those notifications off, because that's just another distraction. And when we live in a distracted world, it actually affects our brain and really hurts our cognitive abilities and our executive functioning, which means we'll make bad choices. So I know that was a lot to kind of absorb about that, but it's just so important to get that one right.
That's why I'm so exhausted when I'm in my office and the cell phone is beeping with the notifications, and I can't seem to concentrate, get one thing done because of that darn phone. So I'm glad you said what you said. I turn it off.
That's so true. We're like Pavlov's dogs, right? I don't know if you remember Pavlov's dogs, the whole story. Like and just for our viewers or listeners who may not be familiar with it. So Pavlov had found out that he would feed the dogs, he'd ring the bell and they'd eat. And so he did this after a while. So then he'd ring the bell, but he wouldn't feed them, but they would still salivate because they were expecting food. Well, the phone dings and we're like Pavlov's dogs, we start salivating. What is it? I got to know. I have to know right now. And this whole fear of missing out is so accurate. And if we think back to like the 80s, early 90s, when we weren't really on our phones like this, we didn't have all these apps. We weren't dinging every 2 seconds, whether it's our Outlook inbox or our phone or what have you, dinging constantly. Before all of that, we actually were able to live in the moment a little bit more. So what we have to do is learn how to control that environment. And like I said, go into your settings, go into notifications, turn them off. So important.
So I'm getting a notification now. We're down to about 3 minutes here.
Okay, we'll go through them fast.
Okay.
Number 8, the absolute favorite of guys is sex. Sex is really important to longevity. If you pick up the book, you get all the research behind it. I can tell you that we do know that there's so much research between sex and longevity. There's functional MRIs that show that the brain lights up in a certain area that doesn't light up or otherwise. And it has to be really human to human. It can't be all this nonsense on the internet. That's not what does it for us. Number 9 is sleep. Well, gosh, we could have probably spent 20 minutes on sleep, but I'll tell you, going back to functional MRI, we now know, and this is so critical, if you're watching or listening to this and you have a fear of Alzheimer's or dementia, the number one thing you absolutely must fix is your sleep. Because in our brains, when we go to sleep, we go through cycles of sleep. So in those cycles of sleep, we want to get to the REM sleep, which is the last cycle. And the longer we stay asleep, the REM cycle lengthens. It's in the REM cycle, when we're in deep REM sleep, that the brain actually washes itself like a washing machine, and it clears out those plaques. And this is what keeps us from getting Alzheimer's and dementia. So if you do nothing else and you say, I can't do all these tips, get some sleep, get good sleep. It needs to be uninterrupted sleep. Sleep, sleep, sleep. So important. 7.5 to 8 hours a night.
And 10?
And then number 10 is laugh and enjoy life. Now, this may seem like, really, this is a step. It's critical. So take a moment, enjoy your friends, enjoy your family, put on a comedy, because laughing and enjoying life will keep you young and keep you healthy.
Thank you so much, Judy. I really appreciate you being here today. And thank you, listeners, for being with us. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'll see you next week. Next week, we're having a young man who's right now in Nashville making a new album for us. He's going to share some things with us about that. But thanks again, Judy. And I'll say goodbye to everybody out in the audience. And you wave
My
to them.
pleasure. Bye-bye.